And you're live, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this Strategy and Resources Committee meeting on Thursday, the 2nd of October. My name is Councillor John Driver and I am the chair of this committee. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to an agenda or referring to agenda papers, and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. We do not have any fire alarm testing scheduled for today. However, we may have periodic fire alarms, and I remind members to ensure they sign in and out when entering the council offices. If you hear the fire alarm, please exit using either of the two marked fire escape routes. Once out of the building, please proceed to the designated muster point located on the grass verge by the police station entrance. Clerk, can we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Apologies were received from Councillor Siddle, and Councillor Stevens is attending as a substitute for Councillor Siddle.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item 3 then, which are the minutes. It's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 24th of July 2025, found on pages 5 to 42 are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. Can we agree by assent? Thank you very much. We move on then to agenda item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Members, any declarations of interest this evening? No? Okay, thank you. We move on. Agenda item 5, public participation. I can advise that we have not received any submissions from members of the public. We move on. Agenda item 6 on the agenda, quarter 1. So this can be found on pages 43 to 54, and I'll ask Mr. J if he could present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, committee. So this is the budget monitoring report for the council for the first quarter. That's the period from 1st of April to 30th of June for the financial year 25-26. It's still pretty early in the year, but it's good practice, obviously, to bring forward a regular report, not least because it helps us to make sure that we are on track as appropriate. In terms of the recommendations at section 2, I'm somewhat embarrassed to confess that actually a couple of the appendix recommendations are incorrect. I've noticed that in just preparing for the meeting. Some of you may have noticed the same. I can go through that and explain exactly what's going on, and we'll do so in a moment. But very simply, the appendices at the back of the report are correct. It's the references through to the recommendations in section 2 which are incorrect. Just to take you through that very quickly, overall, the revenue position is summarised in Appendix 1. That's correct. In paragraph little 4, the capital position is indeed summarised at Appendix 2. So far, so good. Unfortunately, little 5, that should be Appendix 3, not Appendix 4, as it states at little 5. The following, Appendix 5, should then, obviously, be Appendix 4. And lastly, Appendix 6 doesn't exist. And that's because that was just a carryover from the previous report. That's a a drafting error, and it's entirely my own responsibility. So apologies to the committee for that. I hope that is clear from that perspective. In terms of the content of the report and the information being relayed back to the committee, overall, I think this is a positive report. There's good news in here. The revenue position, which is set out from paragraph 3.2, indicates that overall, looking at the service expenditure position, we're within about 0.3% of budget. And through the course of the year and working with councillors on the finance working group, I'm looking to target a position at the end of the year which is somewhere between 1% above or 1% below the budget that's in that range. So trying to keep variations through the course of the year reasonably close to budget and being transparent in the way that that's being achieved. So overall, the position is reflecting that as at Q1. Capital is set out at paragraph 3.3. The position there is slightly different in terms of the way that budgets work, but broadly, again, the intention is to keep the outturn position close to the budgeted position, albeit that capital, as we know, can fluctuate through the course of the year, sometimes for reasons which are outside of the control of those delivering different schemes. Again, transparently, that will be reported back, and at the moment, we're looking at a slight overspend projected at this stage, not confirmed, of about 38,000 on potential spending of up to about 6.5 million. So again, a good position there, but it's still early in the year, so we'll sort of continue to report back and keep that under review. The reserves position is set out or outlined in 3.4, and as it says at Appendix 3, and that indicates that the current position remains strong in terms of the overall general unallocated reserves and also the earmarked or allocated reserves held on hand by the council. So there's a good position there. It continues to be a strong position, and further to discussion with the councillors on the working group, we continue to hold, if I can call it this, a core reserve of 2.3 million under all circumstances, with a view that that's there to provide some kind of cover against unexpected events, which obviously are well outside the planning for the budget for the current year. Overall, the impacts are set out as at 4.1 around the delivery of good quality services, and the implications as set out at section 5. The appendices are there, and I'm happy to take any further questions as appropriate. Chair, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jay. So I will just quickly run through the recommendations. So recommendation little 1 then, that members note the forecast revenue outturn as at the 30th of June 2025 is 43,000 under budget, 0.4%. Further information can be found at Appendix 1, along with reasons for significant variances. Little 2, that members note that additional grant funding has been received above the total estimated when the budget was approved in February 2025, chiefly comprising 385,000 additional funding for the impact of small business rate reliefs and the impact to revaluation of business premises. Little 3, that members agree for the additional grant income received to be transferred to the council tax and business rates equalisation reserve until such time as the cost the grant is designated to fund are identified, when it will be moved to the relevant service budgets and reported to members in the earliest subsequent report. The figures in this report assume that such a transfer is made. Little 4, that members consider the forecast capital outturn as at the 30th of June 2025, which is for a total capital programme delivery of 6,502,000 against revised budget of 6,472,000. Further information can be found in Appendix 2, along with reasons for significant variances. Little 5, that movements in the earmark reserves set out in Appendix 3 be approved. Little 6, that the revenue budget reconciliation in Appendix 4 be noted. And finally, in little 7, that the committee requests that officers begin planning for future savings as outlined in the revised MTF position in, is that Appendix 5 or is that?
Sorry. recommendation, little 7 can be ignored, it can be cancelled or deleted, whatever the appropriate terminology is.
Okay, so we
error.
can forget altogether
Yes.
little 7
Thank you,
then.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So I so move to have a seconder. Thank you very much, Councillor Stilt. So, members' questions? Councillor Fiddick.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question on earmark reserves. And it's got customer and operations, revenues and benefits. It's got grants put forward to may be used to fund staff to meet operational pressures, 467,800. I mean, is that correct? That seems a significant amount of money to have sitting around earmark reserves for operational pressures.
Mr. J.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, no, happy to respond to that. There is an amount which is received in part of the council tax sharing agreement through the county council, which helps to support the staff in Revs and Ben's teams right across the county, with the objective of ensuring that we're able to staff up as much as possible and maintain a good level of collection rate, which is what this council has seen. We're also able to use some funds which come through, for example, through the DHP discretionary housing payments to support the administration of those kind of payments, which means that sometimes we're able to take elements of the pay budget which have been unapplied during the course of the year, because we've been able to swap in some of the admin grant provisions, so we're able to hold that off on one side. Currently within the team there are 4 posts which are funded on a routine basis through different types of one-off grant funding. That helps us to keep the staffing at a relatively strong level in that team, and also to keep the collection rates at quite a high level. I concede the point, it's true, yes, actually that's a fair amount of money in that respect. We don't always use all of it. It is something I'm holding under review, and it's something I'll be reviewing with the team as we go through the planning process for next year's budget to ensure it's held at a reasonable level, and where possible we may be able to disapply it from that area and reapply it somewhere else. But it is there, and that's the purpose that it's there for. I hope that helps.
Okay. You've got your light on. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, so it's been proposed and seconded. Can we have a vote? Those in favour, please? It's everyone. Okay, thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 7, discretionary fees and charges policy 26-27. This can be found on pages 55 to 58. And I believe, Mr. J, it's over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you, Chair, thank you, Committee. And this is just setting the scene for the more detailed discussions around fees and charges as we go forward with the business and budget planning process for the financial year 2026-27. This is really just, I think, in the way that Committee has probably seen in prior years, setting out the principles through which we will endeavour to set the fees and charges to be applied as we go through the budget setting process. I think it's worth drawing out a couple of the points which are set out in the report from section 3. Not all of the fees and charges that are applied and recouped by the council are set locally by members of the council. Some of those fees and charges which we're able to charge and able to collect the income through are set centrally by government. So the ones that are sent centrally, those ones we just have to apply those however government instructs us to apply those. So this is particularly relevant to, in fact only relevant to, those charges where there is local discretion over what the level of the charges are going to be. In terms of the ways in which it's being suggested that the fees and charges that are discretionary are set for the 26-27 year, the table at 3.2.1 sets out a number of factors to be considered and ways in which those can be considered. And they're all there. I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to look at them. I've tried to present those in a way which is quite accessible and relatively easy to work through. The key elements within that, it is appropriate to review annually. there are often it's quite a lengthy schedule of the different fees and charges which can be applied. It is appropriate to try to review that as much as possible. 100% is good, but otherwise we prioritise time, particularly on the officer side, around those where it's either a higher charge, a bigger change, or a more significant overall level of income that's being worked towards. There's something around ensuring a degree of accessibility. So how do we promote important services, which is the point at B. C sets out, I think, really for the avoidance of doubt, a general accountancy approach, which is around making sure that we work to the full cost recovery principle. We're not looking to make a surplus. That's not what we as an organisation are here to do. We're also not looking to incur a deficit. We're trying to do, in a reasonable way, the process of charging on the costs that we incur, including some of those central costs, the central overhead, central support costs, those sorts of things. That's full cost recovery. And also the non-profit making point is dealt with below that. The one point I've just draw attention to before I move on from this, I think it's worth bearing in mind both the points at E and at F. The tariff should be separated in your considerations from the budget target. So the income to be achieved is done through a combination of the tariff multiplied by the level of activity. The level of activity we can guesstimate because we know what it was last year, so there's a good way of estimating that and working that through. The tariff is often the subject of quite heated discussion, and quite properly so. The income is what helps us the income budget is what helps us to balance out the financial position of the council. So it's important to separate out those three different elements. As I've tried to set it out there, the income is the tariff multiplied by the level of take-up. In terms of the point at F, a standard uplift of 2%. The current MTFS assumes that there is a standard uplift level across all financial years of 2%. This makes financial planning somewhat easier because you're just working with a standard percentage. I do recognise that the CPI level as at last month, so September, was 3.8%. It could be argued quite reasonably that actually we should be looking at a standard 3.8% uplift, particularly for the 26-27 year. I will defer to operational colleagues as I go through the budgeting process to understand better what level of income is best to increase, is best to charge for different fees and charges. In some cases, we see considerably higher levels of increase than the CPI rate. So this is a guide only, and it's a standard level below which I wouldn't want anybody to go because that could disturb some of the MTFS calculations, but it could well be above that. So it's a point for discussion, and perhaps we don't need to get into it so much right now, although we can do, and that may be more for a later discussion around the exact level of the fees and charges which are being proposed. So that's the guiding principles, and if the committee agrees, subject to discussion, that those principles are broadly correct, then we'll be proceeding in terms of working through the exact levels of the fees and charges for recommendation to full council as we go through the budgeting process over the next couple of months. Thank you, Chair. Okay,
thank you, Mr. Jay. So I will just read out the recommendation then that the overarching principles for discretionary fees and charges policies at section 3.2 of this report be approved. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stilts, thank you very much. Questions, members? Councillor Lagan and then Councillor Durham. Okay, well, Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just mindful in a couple of years, with whatever the unitary structure is, there'll need to be standardisation of fees and charges for similar services. I know this is going to come to a LC meeting very shortly, but what sort of preparation work are we taking to evaluate where we are in relation to potential authorities that may form part of that unitary?
Mr. Jay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. I think we're going to be seeing the word harmonisation used a great deal in that context. I think we're probably some way off knowing exactly how and between whom we're going to be harmonising at this stage. At this point, I'm starting conversations with CFO colleagues across the county because we will need to do this in due course. That will probably happen in a number of areas because it's not just going to be the rates which will be different between different areas. But equally, there will be very different tariffs being applied. So, for example, some car parking charges could be by the half hour, others might be by the hour or by the day. We have those variations locally. There will be even more across the constituent authorities that will make up the new unitaries. I think we're a long way off that, and in the first instance, I want to make sure that we have a transparent process through the current year and into next year and the year after. That will give us the basis through which we can start to harmonise between the different councils. So it's the transparency and the clarity which I'm aiming for at this stage. I hope that's a good enough answer for now. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with what Councillor Durham says about planning for the future. There's a couple of things I'm not very clear or happy about, and it's really about the languaging rather than the content. The first one is Principle D, not profit making. So the fees and charges has always worried me because it's, as you say, it's an extensive list of discretionary fees and services, fees and charges. So, some which I feel are personally very, very high, some that I feel are very, very low. But overall, it washes its face and gives us an income stream, which is important. But I think where we talk about that they're not to make a profit, I think that the languaging, it says fees and charges are generally calculated to recover the full cost of the services provided, not to make a surplus, etc. I think we need to sort of change. I think we need to change that to say, in principle, fees and charges are generally to be calculated to recover the full cost of the service provided, not to make a surplus or profit. On regular review, this may result in some charges going down or some charges being removed altogether, and the rest remains the same. The reason I say that, and those who have known me for many years in this chamber have banged on about wharfage. Right. So if you talk about the cost of us to supply wharfage to vessels that visit the town, we do nothing apart from give access to water and electricity. So we should be charging a tenner. We don't, and they don't want to be charged a tenner. This just gives us the flexibility within the principles of the policy to be able to say, okay, we say it's not for profit, but some things we might actually reduce, and we're very clear and transparent about that, and some we might stop charging fully, because that is fair and equitable. I link in to your point about budgeting, about having a standard figure of 2%, but it confuses me because to me we're trying to say, from a budget perspective, we've gone for 2%, but in reality we might not do that. We might increase by significantly more. So the inflationary rate, which is really what everybody sets themselves upon to say, if it's 3.8, I think we had it a few years ago, didn't we, where it was 6 or 7%, and we had to, I think that's in double figures. We had to apply that. I think that needs to be, in my view, a bit clearer to say that is something that we will potentially do, but we don't have to. Because this is discretionary, we are a council and we've clearly stated it's not for commercial gain. I think the principles of the policies are good, but those parts worry me because we tie ourselves into an area where we're too restricted, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lagan. Do you want to respond to that, Mr. J? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. I'm not going to speak to the specifics of wharfage, not least because I know very little about it. But I think the position I'm coming at this from is, in terms of my responsibility to the council in ensuring that there's a balanced financial position. Working back from that, part of that is ensuring that fees and charges are reviewed, that they are reasonable in comparison with the level of activity that goes into them, because the level of activity could change quite a lot from time to time depending on what's required, more effort or less effort, more cost, less cost, etc. So yes, from time to time it is absolutely appropriate to clean through the overall schedule of the tariffs and maybe delete some that are no longer appropriate. Absolutely, I would always agree with that. And some could be in a situation where they could be in a position, exactly as you say, inflation a couple of years ago, for part of the year it was running somewhere between 7 and 8% and getting up towards about 10% at various points. And we do see some of the impacts around the construction industry and some of the things which could be relating to sort of fees and charge. Quite often those inflators, those sectoral inflators, could be working at more than 15% quite easily. So it's about the review process making sure that's done in an appropriate way. And I think particularly where I'm looking forward to working with members as I go through this here for my first sort of budget round, what I think looking for from members is that view over, well, actually, if we're looking at a minimum of 2%, and actually if the charge is a tenner, you don't really want to be putting 20p on it. It doesn't actually make any sense. So it's reasonable in some cases to say, well, we leave it as it is. In other areas, we might look at it and say, well, no, if we benchmark maybe some of the car parking charges, for example, I'm not saying this is the case, but to work with that example because it's an easy one, some car parking charges by comparison with other settlements locally, if we look at maybe what's going on in Chelmsford, for example, for some types of things, with shopping or tourism, we might want to increase them more because we're a little bit out of kilter. In other areas, we might take a view that it doesn't matter quite so much. I'm trying to put forward some general principles, and to the extent that those are helpful, then that works. I think there is no reason why some of the changes to the wording you suggested shouldn't be adopted. I don't think that would necessarily fetter what I'm trying to achieve, and it might help to achieve what members need to do as well. So I'm happy to be flexible around that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, do you want to come back, Councillor Lagan? Yeah.
No, that's exactly that, and I've been very, very selective on the languaging and the wording that I've put in because it supports the substance of the policy, and all we're basically saying is in principle, and we're saying that some costs will go up and some costs may go down and be removed. And I think when you have that and it's very clear, you can work within that, and again you can look at and I think we should really look at this from a line by line item because it's onerous. It doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be done, because I think again some of those things need to be balanced better.
Can I, Mr. J, I'll just respond to that saying, clearly what Mr. J is trying to present here for us are broad principles that we then can use as a starting point to then review in detail, which is the point you're making, which we'll be doing at the Finance Working Group. So that, we're not going to go through line by line here. This is about what are the principles that are going to be applied that will be used when we come to do the more detailed work. And I think your point about, well, some could go up and some could go down. Well, yes, I don't actually think the wording here suggests other than that is possible. I'm open to a change of wording, but I think what you're trying to achieve, it feels to me, this wording says that, but it might be others feel differently to that. Let me just take, I think, Councillor Dodsley, I think you... Oh, you didn't? Oh, sorry, I apologise. Councillor... Is that?
It is, yeah, just a brief.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's excellent, and I think it's going to really help the Finance Working Group when it comes to looking at fees and charges, which, as you'll be aware, we know it's one of those thorny subjects that generates a lot of comment. Yeah, D, we're using the word profit, which I thought was one of those verboten words in the public sector. Would it be? It's a public document. We know it's profit. You and I know it's profit. Most other places it's referred to as surplus or underspent or something.
Councillor Durham, could you use your mic? Sorry.
Yeah, did you get that, Mr. Jane? Yeah. It's just the word profit.
I don't think the clerk got it.
Oh, sorry. I was just making comment on the use of the word profit, which is not usually used in the public sector. It's usually surplus. And I'm just, this is a public document, people looking at it, it may just give the wrong impression. We all know what a surplus is, by any other, description.
Mr. J, do you want to respond?
The choice of wording is based on my experience where sometimes there is a view that the public sector could or should be more commercial in its approach. And within the commentary, what I've tried to say is that if we're working to a full cost recovery principle, the aim is therefore not to target making additional funds available in some way. However, recognising that the individual fees and charges that we work with often relate to quite small areas of activity. And what you can find is that there are if you take differential parking charges, actually there is an overall level of highways management cost to be recovered, which can then be reinvested for the benefit of local people and people visiting the area. There can then be some cross-subsidy, for example, between different types of parking charges. However, I wouldn't want to be in a situation where that benefit that arises from car parking is then used perhaps against wharfage or the other way around. It's trying to make sure that specific areas of activity are restricted, and that's in line with the kind of general government principles which, as a public sector accountant, I'm asked to work within. So I hope that clarifies a little. I'll bear that in mind. Thank you.
Mr Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, Councillor Durham, I think what the principal is trying to say and reinforce is the point that you're making, that as a public sector organisation, our principals are non-profit making, and I think the commentary tries to explain that out there. So, I think we're all in agreement with what we're saying there. And I think with regards to Councillor Lagan's point, I think as the Chief Finance Officer has said, I think we can tweak the wording, because again, I think we're all saying the same thing on the principles. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lagan, you want to come back?
Yeah, I think we are all saying the same thing, but I've bitter experience on this council where sometimes we need to have an explicit statement in there to source the decisions from. And if you think about it, we're not changing anything. We're just saying that our principles are this, and things can go up and come down, but we're being explicit about that in the ether that surrounds the policy. So that's the point I'm trying to make. It's really clear, that we are in principle, which is the word I've added, and then on regular review, this may event charges going down or some charges being removed altogether. I'd rather see that in there so it's really clear and understandable for anybody who looks at how we make that decision, and then this policy informs how we take our decision-making process through. We're all saying the same thing.
Mr J, are you comfortable with that?
No objections at all.
Right, okay. Anybody else have any concerns about that? No, so it looks like we can make that adjustment. So unless there are any more questions or comments, then actually with that small adjustment, I don't know whether Tara, you've got that. Ms Bird?
Yeah, I've got that.
Thank you very much. Good. Well, okay, with that adjustment, then can we agree by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on then. So agenda item 8, approval of the Environmental Health, Waste and Climate Action Enforcement Policy 2025. This can be found on pages 59 to 72. I believe, Ms Wheatley, you are taking us through this report.
I am, yes, thank you.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Good evening, members. Officers are bringing a report to Strategy and Resources this evening, seeking approval for the adoption and publication of an updated Environmental Health, Waste and Climate Action Enforcement Policy. This is an updated policy that sets out Maldon District Council's approach to regulatory enforcement across environmental health, waste and climate action functions. It builds on the principles of the corporate enforcement policy and aims to ensure that enforcement decisions are fair, proportionate, consistent and transparent while safeguarding public health, safety and welfare. The policy outlines the principles guiding enforcement actions, aligning with the most up-to-date national legislation and codes such as the Regulators Code, the Human Rights Act and the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. It supports officers in making informed decisions that balance public interest with legal obligations and promotes a collaborative approach with other regulatory bodies and agencies while supporting businesses and individuals in achieving compliance. The policy introduces a graduated enforcement approach focusing on early engagement, education and compliance with escalation to formal action where necessary. The policy will be reviewed every 2 years or sooner if required by legislative or policy changes. We do have our Environmental Protection Team Manager, Mr Paul Clift, joining this evening, so he'll be available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wheatley. So I'll read out the recommendation then, that members agree to approve and publish the Environmental Health, Waste and Climate Action Enforcement Policy 2025 as set out in Appendix A. I so move. Do I have a second? Councillor Stilts, thank you very much. So, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Lagan.
Sorry, it's maybe it's just a note of accuracy. And page, I'll tell you the page number if you like, because I'm always moaning about that when I'm sitting up there. Page 71, and it's 7 authorisation of officers. It says all enforcement officers will be authorised in writing by the Director of Service Delivery. Those titles have changed, so we probably just want to change that to be the complete. Yeah.
Right, the whisper in my ear is they have not yet officially changed, but when they do officially change next
Will we
week,
change it? Yeah.
it will then be changed.
Yeah, I just don't want to
Thank you.
have an
Yeah,
out-of-date document.
Indeed. Yeah. Any other questions, Councillor Fittock?
It was just, I was going to ask a question. It's just for curiosity, really, because obviously it says that the authorisation of each officer is dependent on the duties they have been appointed to undertake, blah, blah, blah. What happens in a situation where we haven't got full-time employees, we're bringing in agency staff? Is it just...
Yes, sorry. Yes, Ms Wheatley, if you could respond to that. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, of course, yes. So agency staff are able to act under the same power as any permanent members of staff because they are delivering the same statutory functions. So with the delegated powers passed down to me, I issue authorisation letters to any officers that are performing those statutory functions on behalf of Maldon District Council. That also covers our licensing team. So our licensing functions are delivered through Chelmsford City Council. So any officer that is delivering those functions will have the appropriate powers by it to act and to issue notices, etc., where necessary.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So, Councillor Spenceley.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the title of the whole policy. And the reason I say that is because environmental health, waste and climate action enforcement policy, it's no secret in here that I'm passionate about climate action, but the truth is it seems to have been taken to mean something else in our wider society at the moment. And I think it just the term antagonises an awful lot of residents now. And I think in reality, and I don't want to sound political, but if we get any reform councillors, they'll be scrapping this straight away, won't they? So if we're protecting ourselves for the future, could we not have called it an environmental health, waste and environment action policy, enforcement policy rather? Because the words climate action, I think, could be replaced by environment. It just seems, I know we've got environmental health and then environment as well, but I know that we're considering with the Climate Action Working Group changing the title of that group, because getting wider support for the work that we would want to do in that direction is perhaps a matter of getting people on board. And I mean, it's fine if members think that's fine, but I'm just raising a question as to whether or not it is actually an issue, because sometimes issues hiding things that we don't necessarily expect them to in reality.
Thank you. Ms Wheatley, I don't know whether you want to come back on that comment.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. The policy reflects the name of, I guess, the service, the department as it is currently. But there's no reason why we can't go back and tweak the title of the policy if we feel that it needs to avoid any sort of negative connotations or perceptions. So yes, we can take that away and make those changes. That's fine.
So I'll just get a mood from the room in a minute, but just before Councillor Spencer, you want to come back?
Yeah, there is a further point to it as well, in that the problem in just calling everything climate action is that it does miss biodiversity by quite a big mile. So I think that environment covers both climate action and biodiversity, and I could see that we might have enforcement issues that concern biodiversity, for example, loss of wildlife and trees. So that's why I think that maybe that's not the right title as well. There's another reason. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the room? Councillor Fittock, and then I'll bring in
Yeah, I would
Councillor
agree. I mean, I can't see anything specifically relating to climate action. I mean, how can you enforce climate action? So I think that's a very good observation. I'd support.
Councillor, you agree? I get a feeling from the room that people are nodding, so there seemed to be a general view that suggested change sweetly is one that the committee would like to see. So I think that's just replacing climate action with environment. I know there's environmental and then the environment, but people will understand that, I would have thought. Yeah, nods around the room. Any other questions? No, in which case can we agree by assent? Oh, sorry, apology.
Can we re-agree the recommendation with the correct title?
Oh, right, okay, I will do that. So the the recommendation then is that members agree to approve and publish the environmental health, waste and environment enforcement policy 2025 as set out in Appendix A. I so move. Well, you're seconded by Councillor Stilton, yeah, and agreed? Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, we move on.
Sorry, just a query. Are we changing just the title or are we changing the references throughout the report as well?
I would have thought references throughout the report, otherwise it doesn't make sense otherwise. So, okay, thank you very much. Good. So we move on then, agenda item 9, Food Safety Plan 2025 to 2028. This can be found on pages 73 to 88. And Ms Wheatley, I think you're on again.
It is, thank you, Chair, yes. Officers are bringing a report to Strategy and Resources this evening, seeking agreement for the adoption and publication of a brand new food safety plan for 2025 to 2028. The Food Safety Plan demonstrates how Maldon District Council will deliver its duties as a competent authority under food law and ensure that food placed or intended to be placed on the market for human consumption, which is produced, stored, distributed, handled or purchased within the District of Maldon, is without risk to public health or the safety of the consumer. The Food Safety Plan details the service aims and objectives, organisation information such as a district profile, and the organisational structure, the demands on the service, the resources available to deliver the required work, quality management and a review process. Our Environmental Health Commercial Team Manager, Ms Sarah Turbot, is available this evening to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will read out the recommendation then that the Food Safety Plan 2025 to 28 as set out in Appendix A be approved for publication. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stilts, thank you. So any questions? Councillor Lagan.
It's actually, this applies to the previous report as well for Miss Wheatley. It's really good work. The only thing, it's a question really. It's in section 4 under resources, 4.2 staffing allocation. Is that enough? Because it seems an awful lot of work to be done, and it really is a question: have we resourced this enough to be able to make sure that the delivery of the service is successful? It's just a question. You might turn around and say yep, or it's a review, or no. I don't know. It's just a question.
Ms Wheatley, I think you've been asked a question there, so...
It is a very good question, yes. If members remember, there was an approval for growth for 2 environmental health officers from this financial year onwards. One of those environmental health officers is sat within the commercial team. Now, we haven't been able to recruit into that post, unfortunately. There just weren't any successful candidates. So as a result, we've extended our contract with a contractor, a partner, to deliver food hygiene inspections. So in terms of having that capacity there, that seems to be sufficient. But I will hand over to Ms Turbot just to get her views as to whether or not she feels there's any gaps and whether there could be any future requirements for resources.
Okay, thank you, Ms Turbot.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I think based upon the performance at the moment and looking at sort of performance monitoring, we are where we need to be. We are scrutinised by the Food Standards Agency and obviously internally as well. And at the moment, in terms of meeting our obligations to carry out the programmed food hygiene inspections, for example, we are on track. We don't have a huge backlog. We're talking sort of single figures.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep, Councillor Durham.
Thank you very much. It's an excellent piece of work. Nice to see Ms Turbot here.
Yes.
Long time no see, Sarah.
Certainly is. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Just a point of clarity that this doesn't include food producers, which is the responsibility of trading standards rather than environmental health. And in saying that, I should probably declare an interest in that I'm the cabinet member responsible for trading standards at Essex County Council.
Thank you.
For my sins.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? No? All right. In that case, then, can we agree by assent? Agree. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to agenda item 10. So this is revised Our Home, Our Future Climate Strategy and Climate Action Plan. This can be found on pages 89 to 144. And I believe, Councillor Stilts, you are speaking to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the Climate Action Officer is not available at the moment, as the chair of the Net Zero Working Group, I am presenting this. If you remember, we come to full council earlier in the year to say that the policy that we had, which was to reach net zero by 2030, was not obtainable. Although we would work towards that, we asked to be extended, which full council agreed. So therefore, this recommendation is setting out our policy in line with that change and also bringing us in line with the corporate plan. So I'm not going to go through the appendix for you because you can all read that, but that is the principle of what this is. So it's just bringing us in line with the policies that we've already got.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will just read through, thank you very much, Councillor Stilts. I'll read through the recommendation then that the committee approves the revised Our Home, Our Future Climate Strategy and Action Plan 2025 to 28, Appendix 1, including the projects set out in the Climate Action Plan, CAP section, pages 120 to 132 of this agenda pack. I so move. Do I have a second? Councillor Durham, thank you very much. So any questions, members? Councillor Bolcook.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one observation that on page 96, the forward is language that I don't understand. That it's not typed correctly. There's an error there. So the forward is actually missing all of its relevant information. So I can't, I don't understand it and can't decipher it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Stilts, if you can help us out with this. Oh, yes. How interesting. How very, what do you mean you can't read this?
Yes, I think we need to translate for it. Sorry. We will take that back to the Climate Action Officer and get that revised.
Well, indeed. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Lagham.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly the same.
Yes,
Yes, I wonder if people go over that, but is it like a Latin or Italian or something?
Well,
A Latin or Italian or something. It made me smile as well. That proves that we read these things, doesn't
yes.
it? I do have a comment on it. It's a really good piece of work. It's well written, it's well structured, it's well intended, and it's something that we can hang our hats on, which is absolutely critical. I do worry a little bit about the time frame from now until 2028, because obviously with the LGR coming along, I hope it won't get too poorly impacted. But I just wanted to acknowledge the officers that have put that together formally in this committee. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Now we've not yet deciphered the first, but Councillor Spenceley.
It is a great piece of work. There are other little problems with it in terms of like our operational emissions, and there's the lower cap on the E. So I think there's a bit of consistency of style across it, as well as the change to the forward.
Okay, Councillor Stilts.
If we can we'll bring that back to the next working group meeting when the officer is back, and then we can go through it and just make sure that we're happy with that.
Okay, so we've had a recommendation which has been seconded. Yeah. We're accepting it's a good piece of work. We understand that the forward is interesting. The forward will be forwarded and there'll be some tweaks needed. But given that, are we happy to agree this by consent? Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. We move on.
We can just simply add to the end of that recommendation subject to a final.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Are we comfortable with that, subject to, as just been suggested? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bird. We move on then, agenda item 11, lease extension Springfield Business Park. This can be found on pages 145 to 148. And I believe, Ms. Holmes, you are taking us through this.
Good evening, members. The report for you tonight is we have received a request from one of the tenants on Springfield Business Park to extend their lease. As you may or may not be aware, there are approximately 15 units on that site, the majority of which were leased in between 1973 and 1974. I won't mention that was before I was born. Something good. So that was they were all the leases were for a period of 85 years. Obviously, they are coming to the point now. There's only 33 years remaining on the majority of those leases. We've had this request because a lot of businesses, when they're looking to invest, want some security over the length of time that they're going to be in the property. So hence their request. The delegations that are currently available to officers don't allow us to grant that decision, which is why it's before you tonight for you to decide. With that in mind, and bearing in mind that we're aware that there are 14 other units in a very similar position, we've also opted to include a delegation for officers to be able to grant leases to any other business unit that's in the same position, so that has a term of less than 40 years remaining and wishes to renew it up to a maximum of 99-year term. That's to prevent me over the coming months making 15 separate reports to you on an identical nature. Obviously, if we get requests for anything other than that, they would still come before committee if they're outside of our delegations. I'm obviously prepared to answer any questions, and as you will see, the recommendation gives some delegation, and we will report back, if necessary, any that are made under that change, so that you will be made aware of which leases have been extended under that delegation.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So I'll read these recommendations out. So little 1, that the council agrees for the current lease for Unit 8 Springfield Business Park, Burnham-on-Crouch, to be extended for an additional 66 years, making the total lease length of 99 years. Little 2, that the Assistant Director of Customer Services and Operations be given delegated authority in consultation with the Chair of the Strategy and Resources Committee to agree extensions to any other lease of any unit within the Springfield Business Park with less than 40 years remaining, to increase the lease term to a maximum of 99 years. Little 3, that the Assistant Director, Customer Services and Operations be given authority to agree the annual rent figure for the leases in recommendations 1 and 2 in line with the current market valuation with a 10-year rent review. And little 4, that all leases which are extended in line with the delegations set out at little 2 above are reported to the Strategy and Resources Committee. I so move. Do I have a second? Councillor Stilts. Questions, members? Councillor Durham.
Again, just very quickly, and again with LGR on my mind, I mean, I take it there are break clauses in these leases. I mean, ahead of a Section 24, which is going to come next year, we need to be a bit mindful.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
These leases are all will have an automatic right to renew at the end of their term because they haven't been excluded from the Landlord and Tenant Act, so they will automatically renew. In terms of any property assets and leases, from what's happened in previous reorganisations, is you will hear this word a lot from me, novated over to the new authority. So they will effectively be transferred, and the lease will change from us being the landlord to the name of the new authority, and that will happen automatically. So they should all transfer over, hopefully fairly easily.
Any other questions, members? Otherwise, sorry?
I said I was making sure Councillor
I put my hand up, but Councillor Durham's asked the question I was going to ask. I'm not going to ask the question again.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so since there are no other questions, can we agree by assent? Great, thank you very much. Okay, we move on to agenda item 12. Any other items of business that the chair decides are urgent? There are none. So agenda item 13, exclusion of public and press, that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 1, 2 and 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Act, and that this satisfied the public interest test. I so moved. Do I have a second? Councillor Stilts, thank you very much. Can we agree by assent? Agreed. Great, thank you. Can we go into private session then?